So hello world, my name is Amelia and welcome to another one of my regular videos. So something I just wanted to touch really quick on was, so recently I actually ended up deleting a video on my channel. It was actually a recent video and it wasn't that I necessarily disagreed with what I said in the video. It was more so the fact that upon better review of the video, I had realized that maybe my point didn't come across as well as I had hoped, especially considering that I showed the video to a friend and, you know, obviously it's a subject that's not very popular. Technically, I've kind of talked about it before in other videos, so what I kind of said in the video obviously kind of is still true with me, and the video was actually all about why I'm not really a huge supporter of trans kids. However, I thought that I just wanted to do another video, not about that necessarily, but probably more so highlighting the reasons that I didn't really like that video as much, why it didn't really hold up to my standards, my quality of the kind of content I like to upload. Particularly what I wanted to talk about in this video was the fact of how I have changed over the course of time. Something that has changed a lot with me is my beliefs. What I find to be acceptable versus not acceptable. I guess that's kind of a very loose way of putting it. But basically what I'm trying to say is I grew up in a very ultra-conservative Christian family. And there was a time in my life that I was just as homophobic, transphobic, every kind of phobic of anybody in the LGBT community as anyone could be. I remember there was a time that I actually was a little heavier on making things like sexist jokes and just talking about things that were inappropriate. And as time went on, especially from like my 20s onward, I had realized that it was not appropriate. It was actually very hurtful. One of the reasons that was is because personally I realized how much it hurt, I guess you could say. Somebody like me, especially last year, when I officially had started this journey of transitioning and becoming my true self, and having people make comments around me regarding my gender identity and who I want to be was just something that taught me all the more of just being careful with my own words. And that's why I can be a huge advocate to talking to people like my parents or whoever and being like, hey, you need to really watch your words. You really don't realize the hurt that can come out of your mouth by speaking certain subjects or words or saying things. And it's something I've always had to constantly police myself on. Not police in a wrong way, but police as in just being careful, because I want to be accepting. I want to be loving. I want to be a supporter of people in our community. That is something that's on my heart. I want to reach the community. I want to help. Anyways, back to the subject. So that's one thing, is how homophobic and transphobic I was back in the day. I mean, I sat there and I was mimicking my parents, making comments like, oh yeah, a guy who's cutting his dick off is totally whacked in the head. Yeah, kind of am whacked in the head, but at the same time, it actually helps in some cases, pending review on each of those cases. Point is even trans kids is one of those areas that I'm kind of starting to reevaluate. I was definitely much more against it, especially considering that my parents, out of anybody who could ever transition, it was definitely a subject my parents were the most against, or some people I know. And I was always kind of like, well, this is me, I'm older, I'm 32 years old, I'm transitioning, I'm not a trans kid anymore. However, that I kind of felt like that gave me permission, in a sense, to then be transphobic towards trans kids. So what I'm trying to say by that is I'm, again, not against trans kids in the way that they need help. I grew up in that situation. I felt gender dysphoria at the age of 4. I know what it feels like. And especially considering today that trans kids have it even harder. That young kids that are questioning their gender have it even more difficult because they have a society that's constantly hammering them and giving them this, oh, there's an answer out there, but you know, you're not allowed to touch it. You can't do it, especially when it's coming from family or parents. Same thing. Same difference, right? So anyways, the point is that I have realized, especially considering I have been, I guess one of the reasons that I might have not been as willing to understand is because I have just personally been very fortunate. I have been very fortunate to be 32 years old and yet being able to transition fairly well, to not have as difficult of a time as people my age. I mean, yeah, 32 is probably the extent that I've seen some very good transitioners. I don't mean to be rude to anybody, but it does seem like it really starts to trickle off after the age of 30. Hi! So anyways, as you get in those older ages, it can be a little more difficult to have that positive result. So I have been very lucky in that area. Some other people are not as lucky as I am. And I need to be grateful. Yeah, I still have problems. I still have things about me that could never be fixed, or they could be fixed, you know, if I'm willing to put into the procedures out there to help. But the main thing is that kids, young age, teens, I have seen trans women, I'm mostly focusing on trans women since that is what I am, who have transitioned in their teens, and most of them turn out gorgeously, turn out amazing. And I generally hear a much higher level of satisfaction. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm a supporter of the really, really young trans kids. The ones where they're like, oh yeah, bam, right there at puberty, we're going to start doing it. Bam, we're going to start doing it right at that level of, I can't even think of the proper word. The point is that 18, I think, is a great age. If it really needs to happen, I am full support of anyone over the age of 18. 14 and 16, I think, is more of an evaluating point where it just needs a little more scrutiny, just to be careful, because that's the other problem. Because these kids are in a modern day and age, we do need to make sure that they're not just following a trend, that they're not following the trendsetters, because that is a thing. I have seen it personally. I have seen plenty of guys out there. Wow. I mean guys as in non-gender. Plenty of people out there who just see trans as, oh, this is a trend, and they just follow it because. I've actually heard somebody say this one time, and I completely agreed with it, that in a way the whole LGBT umbrella is just the latest goth. It kind of is. I don't mean that, again, to be offensive to anybody. Like for, oh yeah, you know, like for another area that I've kind of changed on is I used to be a whole lot more phobic towards non-binary people. Being a little more like, I'm not really so accepting of you. I mean, I'm more than happy to call you by whatever pronouns you want, which is they and them. I'm more than happy to do that. But being that I've had my own battle with like getting my parents to use my preferred pronouns and finally getting somebody to agree to use they and them in my family, I have realized that, yeah, maybe it is a little more hurtful if they gotta stick to one or the other. You know, I still very strongly believe that in order for you to do this, you need to feel gender dysphoria. I felt it, and I know a lot of them that don't feel gender dysphoria, and I kind of am a little more weary of people like that. Again, I do want to make the disclaimer this time, considering that I haven't really made it on previous videos. These are my personal thoughts, and I do admit I could be wrong. And I also admit that my opinions could change with time. My opinions changed just prior to this video. I went from believing that trans kids should not get their affirming care and that that non-binary people were not valid to now I'm pretty sure non-binary people are valid and trans kids really should get some sort of care. So my point is, you know, people years from now could be watching this and being like, oh my gosh, she's so transphobic, and just give me a chance to figure this out. It is difficult. It is difficult, and I'm not willing to just throw all to the wind and just say whatever. Anyways, I think that's about the best I can say it. And surprisingly, yeah, sorry, my viewer is over here this time. Surprisingly, we haven't done too bad. So anyways, I will catch everybody in the next video, and please don't forget to follow me on social media. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. I actually have like 9 subscribers now. Wow, probably future me would be hearing me say that and being like, oh my gosh, it's way more than that now. I hope. I really hope. Again, like I said, I hope I'm interesting to watch. I don't know if I am. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna let you go. You all stay lovely. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering, I have a new microphone. Let's hope that this actually improved my audio quality, considering my audio has been like really bad in some of my past videos. So, I will catch you all next time.